here you are. The technician hands me the mic, and I step out onto the stage. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. I had been practicing so hard all week. My heart was thumping so hard, I swear the audience could hear it through the microphone. But I took a deep breath, and I went for it. สวัสดีค่ะ Cindy สิริญญาค่ะ ขอต้อนรับทุกท่านเข้าสู่ I introduced myself and I welcomed everyone to the product launch of the new iced coffee drink, of which I was the new presenter. I was 17 years old, and this was my first public speaking engagement. And then, everything went blank. It was like the spotlight had just flooded out every single line I had so carefully memorized, every word I had rehearsed completely from my brain. There was nothing. I stood there rooted on the stage, staring out at the audience and seeing hundreds of pairs of eyes just staring back at me, waiting to see what I would do next, listening for my next word. Except I had no words. And it was probably less than a minute, but it seemed like an eternity. And then I just ran off the stage with hot tears streaming down my face into the arms of my mother, who was waiting backstage, completely shocked. It was a fantastic failure. And I wasn't used to failure. See, I was born an only child to a pair of older, loving, but pretty critical parents. I grew up being the center of their world, the center of their universe, the center of their attention. I wanted to make them proud of me. So I worked hard to get straight A's at school. I would perform at every Christmas party we had. I wanted their approval, their praise, their recognition. I wanted to be their perfect little girl. And I inherited my mother's fierce independence and my father's stubbornness. And so I wasn't going to let that failure define me. So I needed to prove to themselves, and I needed to prove to myself that I could do better than that. So I started looking for other opportunities to get back on stage. I practiced, I rehearsed, I made sure to never forget the words on the script again. And I got really good at what I did. I became known as the host who could memorize pages of script and deliver each line with precision and poise. I started doing smaller events, then bigger launches, then bigger events, bigger audiences, bigger venues, until I became the host of a regional reality show watched by millions. I was pretty proud of where I had come. And professionally, I was at the top of my game. Little did they know, the people who looked at me and saw me as this ultimate professional, little did they know how awkward I felt as soon as I stepped off the stage, how my confidence actually took a nosedive, how I fumbled in conversations that were face-to-face at dinner parties, how I would always be anxious or measure my every word to see how they landed, even amongst friends. You see, as long as I was on stage with a mic in my hand and a script in front of me, I felt powerful, I felt confident, I felt in control. And I knew deep in my heart of hearts, though, that every time I was reading from a script, I was reading somebody else's words. And I knew that the person that I was showing to the world was just a version of who I really am. Until one morning, I find myself sitting in my car, reading my paper. Yes, I still read the newspaper, and my cup of coffee. I had a few minutes to kill before I had to go do a fashion show. I think it was Bangkok Fashion Week 2018. And so I open the paper, and I see a headline, and it says, "Don't dress sexy, department tells women." It's like, wonder what's this about? It was March of 2018, just a few weeks before Songkran, which is our Thai New Year, where the whole country celebrates by making merit, visiting family, and having massive water fights. And basically, the article was saying how the government wanted to curb or reduce sexual assault and sexual harassment by asking women to not wear tank tops. I was like, oh, okay, well, what else? You're going to mention to maybe would-be perpetrators to not assault women or not harass people? Are you going to mention maybe a hotline where women could go if they needed help? No. There was nothing of the sort. By the time I got to the bottom of the article, I could just feel my anger rising, this red just taking over my face, and I was so angry. It brought back memories of the time I was assaulted at Songkran Water Festival in broad daylight when I was 17, just a few weeks after that fiasco on stage, even though I was wearing a big baggy t-shirt and long jean shorts. And next thing I knew, I had picked up my phone and I started recording a rant with words that were not on script. These were words that were just bubbling up and out of me, fast and furious. I said, "Really, is this the only thing you can think of? Telling women how to dress? How about you tell men to respect?" It was very angry. And then I put the hashtag, "Don't tell me how to dress, tell men to respect." And I posted it to my Instagram. I had never done anything like that. And then I threw my phone in my bag and went and did a fashion show. Came back 2 hours later to find that my clip had gone viral with tens of thousands of women all over Thailand sharing my frustration, sharing their anger, and even sharing their stories of assault and harassment during Songkran. And I realized that I had hit a nerve, not just with me, but with a lot of people. And within a few days, it went beyond Thailand. It was being shared by Time Magazine, by BBC, and I knew I had to do something more. And so I started learning more about this issue. I learned that nearly 68% of women are assaulted during Songkran. I also learned that violence against women and girls is a serious issue today, and it's not something that just affects them. It affects their families, their communities, their country. I learned that 1 in 3 women around the world has experienced violence in some form during their lifetime, whether it be emotional, physical, or sexual, and that here in Asia, the number is much higher, nearly 1 in 2. That's 50% of women and girls. And so I teamed up with UN Women and Women and Men Progressive Foundation, and we created an exhibition where we took clothing worn by survivors at the time of their assault and put them in big acrylic showcases and stuck them in the middle of Paragon Mall. And these are clothes of women doing normal things, going about their everyday lives, t-shirts, shorts, turtleneck sweaters, jeans, university students, school uniforms, even play clothes of a 2-year-old toddler. I really wanted to push back against this idea that it's because of what a woman is wearing that is the cause of her sexual assault. And perhaps we need to look a little bit further about the power imbalances and harmful gender norms that are still rife in our society. It was the catalyst of me writing a children's book called My Body, My Rules, which teaches children, especially here in Thailand, about body autonomy, about consent, about respect. It's the reason now I use my platform to advocate about this and advocating for teenage menstrual health. And I realized that that was all because that morning I went off script. I used my own words. I had the courage to speak up. And you don't have to be a celebrity or be a professional public speaker to use your voice, to make yourself heard. Change happens whenever you have the courage to speak up. It can happen in your families, at school. It can take the form of just standing up for your friend who's being bullied. It can mean maybe talking to your parents or older family members about harmful gender stereotypes. It could be raising funds or awareness for a local charity. It can even be as simple as following the right people on social media, people who uplift, inspire, and educate, and maybe actually using your platforms one day to uplift, inspire, and educate. I'm still really awkward sometimes when I get off stage. I'm working on it. Confidence is not natural. But I know that even though my words aren't perfect, they are my words, and that makes them powerful. And that goes for all of us. At the end of the day, your words are powerful, your voice matters, and we can all be change makers.